Okay, so this is where we left off, going through attachment 1 with this process description, going through and properly identifying what would be our product. If we want to go through and look up these process categories, especially for red meat, especially for poultry, right? When we're going through and looking at beef, pork, sheep, lamb, poultry, we can go through and we can find these under 9, that's the title. CFR, everybody should know what this means. Please tell me you all know what this means. Code of Federal Regulations. 417, subsection 2, subsection B, subsection 1. It goes through and it identifies these process categories. Pork slaughter, beef slaughter, poultry slaughter, raw ground meat and poultry products, raw not ground. And we're going through and we're saying that raw ground is one product category and raw not ground is. Then we're going through and saying that raw not ground typically is going to be a safer food product than that raw ground meat, right? Mechanically separated. A lot of times we're mechanically separated, we're looking at poultry or turkey, right? Chicken products. Thermally processed, commercially sterile meat and poultry products. If we're looking at something that is commercially sterile, we don't have to worry about anything growing in it, right? Typically we're going to look at a canned food product. Irradiation, heat-treated, shelf-stable meat and poultry products. Heat-treated, shelf-stable. That could be a jerky. Not shelf-stable, something that is not ready to be able to go through and just sit on a shelf, room temperature, not fully cooked meat and poultry products. Bacon. Bacon would classify as a not shelf-stable, heat-treated, because it has been heat-treated, but it's not fully cooked. Not fully cooked meat and poultry product. And then we go through and we have a fully cooked, not shelf-stable meat and poultry product, which may be like a steak that you're able to go through and buy in the grocery store, or a chicken that you're able to go through and buy in the grocery store that's already been cooked, it's under the heat lamps. Those still have to go through HACCP. If we're going to go through and we're going to look at some of these biological hazards, we've got to go through and say, all right, hey, biological hazards reasonably likely to present a cause for foodborne illness denoted by this positive. We go through and we look at the beef, sheep, goat, pork, poultry, all have this as far as salmonella. STEC. Ooh, STEC. Yes, some of these things I do want you to go through and look up, okay? But I'm going to tell you some of them so that you get a start on it. STEC is Shiga toxin, Escherichia coli, including E. coli, O, that is not a 0. This is not a 0, that is an O. O, 157H7. Okay. Campylobacter and SRM. SRM. You need to look up and see what is SRM. I'm not going to tell you. You need to go there and look it up. Okay. I know. Sometimes I want you to go through and look stuff up, and sometimes I'll go through and I'll give it to you because maybe with SRM you don't have enough information to go. Okay. So there's another layer of caution, and really and truly, what is this SRM? BSE. When we go through some of this stuff, we're not real sure about still yet. So we can go through and we can say that, hey, under that Title IX, 310.22, removal of all specified risk material from cattle. And we talked about how age is a factor. If we're going through and we're looking at 18 months, if we're going through and looking at 24 months, how that needs to go through and be treated differently. 30 months, which is really truly the time frame that we're looking for here. We've talked about how we cannot go through and autoclave those prions, and how we can't go through and destroy them. So that's one of those effects. These are things to where we're still not real sure what to do, but we know some things that go through and help. One of those things is to go through and vacuum the specified risk material or the spinal cord. We go through and we vacuum out that spinal cord, all of that nervous tissue. We go through and just vacuum that out while we're in the slaughter process. And at that point, it goes through and makes it safer. HACCP plan development step 3. Develop a complete list of ingredients, raw materials for each product that you're going to go through and make. You can go through a lot of times and divide it into 2 categories. Meat, boneless, beef, chicken parts, whatever, and then all your other ingredients. Spices, preservatives, colorants, anything that you may go through and add that influences or improves your food product. Right? Determined by complexity of the product or process. If you're going through and you're selling a steak, not very complex. Cut it up, scrape the bone dust off, slap it in a package, ready to go. If you're going through and you're making some type of fish surimi, where it's a ground product, you're going through and you're adding seasoning, you're adding spices, you're drying it out, hey, it's going to go through and it's going to take more effort. You're going to have to go through and make it a more complex product. Product categories and ingredients. If we're going through and we're making this pork sausage, we can go through and we can say, hey, what are our meat products? What's our byproducts that we may go through and put in there? Pork trim, right? Let's go through and, hey, that's our meat product. We said we could break these up into two main groups, right? Non-meat ingredients, sausage seasonings, binders and extenders. Hey, we're going to go through and we're trying to keep clean labels, right? We want clean labels. So we're not going to go through and add any binders, extenders. We're not going to add any other spices and flavorings other than those non-meat ingredients as far as the sausage seasoning, right? If we wanted to, we could add specific spices and flavorings under that category. Restricted ingredients. I would love for y'all to go through and tell me what is a restricted ingredient. We've talked about it a couple times. Sodium nitrite. We put sodium nitrite in there because it's a restricted ingredient as far as the amount that we can go through and put in, because we know that nitrites can go through and cause cancer under the Delaney clause. I know we've all talked about it, and I know you've all heard it. If nothing else, if you don't remember in meat science, you can think way, way back in the voids of your memory, go through and remember it from Intro to Food Science. Delaney clause. Identify carcinogens. Preservatives, acidifiers, anything to go through and bring down the pH, so at that point it goes through and helps to preserve your food product. And then packaging materials, plastic film with metal clips. Simple and easy. Develop a process flow diagram. Identify all the steps used to prepare that food product from receiving through final shipment that are under direct control of the establishment. It needs to be verified by walking through the plant to ensure flow is as described. That's the easiest way. That is the easiest way. Just hold your sheet in one hand, walk through the plant, and check things off. Did we do that? Did I identify it on my sheet? Did we do that? Did I identify it on my sheet? Hey, I've got here something here on my sheet that we didn't do. Let me go back and revise my process flow diagram. Diagram is designed to help you find areas where hazards could occur. Right? So here's an easy one. Right? Going through and we're saying, hey, we received trim, we store the trim. We add seasoning and we grind it. Now wait a minute. If we're adding seasoning here, then we should have gotten the seasoning somewhere. So we have to go back over here, receive non-meat ingredients, store non-meat ingredients. Okay, now we've identified where we're going to go through and get our seasoning. Now we can add it in. Package and label. Wait a minute. I'm going from seasoning and receiving it, storing it, seasoning and grinded, package and label. But hey, wait a minute. I need somewhere to go through and tell me what type of package am I having? What type of label am I using? Receive packaging, store packaging. Boom. We can go through and we can now have that feeding into here. A process flow chart has to go through and have each of the steps that you would use from your product going through as a raw product all the way through to where you're giving it to or selling it to the consumer. Okay. So you go through and you package and label, then you go through and you store it, then you go through and you distribute it. Boom. You got a product out there. People are buying it. You're making money, hopefully. Development step number 5, meet regulatory requirements for sanitation standard operating procedures. Good sanitation is the most basic way to ensure a safe product is produced. What is it that you go through and you find hopefully in the restroom of all of the restaurants that you go to? Wash your hands, right? Going through and recognizing that, hey, there's sanitation standard operating procedures. Going through and recognizing, really and truly, that washing your hands falls under sanitation, but it also falls under GMPs. GMPs, really and truly, are the ones to where you go through and you make sure that the employees are doing what they're supposed to be doing. SSOPs make sure that the equipment is clean. GMPs make sure that the employees are clean and well trained. GMPs also goes through and covers training. Should coincide with GMPs and recall plans as needed. Implementing HACCP, you got to go through and have your GMPs, SSOPs first. SSOPs are critical. GMPs, making sure that your people know the importance of your SSOPs. That's really how it goes, hand in hand. Management commitment. If management is focused more, and we've talked about this as far as production versus quality, right? Quality versus safety. Going through and saying, hey, a lot of times people are going through and they're going to say, hey, production is more important because we need to be able to produce the product. If it's safe, somebody else can cook it, right? But if we don't produce it, then it doesn't matter if it's safe or not. And also, hey, we get evaluated on how much we sell, how much we make in the industry. And so the thing is if it takes you too long to go through and make it because you want to go through and make sure that it's safe and you're not producing enough, then you're not selling enough, you're not making enough money, those are problems. Sometimes management will support production over safety. Product description, verify your flow diagram and execute the 7 principles. You go through and you have your good manufacturing practices. They comprise a variety of practices such as raw materials, quality assurance, record keeping, standards for cleanliness and safety, qualifications of manufacturing personnel to make sure that those people are trained, to make sure that you're doing the testing that you need, right? Those are 2 big things, right? Importance. Provide quality assurance that off-the-shelf testing cannot. Off-the-shelf testing relies on random sampling of a very small subset of that final product, so that you go through and you have that final product that's made, that's in the store, somebody comes through and they every so often go through and pull them off the shelf and they test them to see, hey, how does this product perform? Or you go through and you store it in-house, and after 90 days you go through and you pull it off the shelf, or what would be simulated as far as that shelf, and you go through and see how would it perform. That's off-the-shelf testing. GMPs a lot of times go through and give you stuff or give you information that off-the-shelf cannot. They provide continual measures of quality that can uncover problems and fluctuations as they occur before the product shipped. And really and truly, because after it's shipped, you've put a lot of money into it. Your company has put a lot of money into it. You want to make sure that it's safe before it goes out the door. Thus, GMPs are a more immediate, and consistent way to control quality and safety. GMPs involved as far as developing test methods for dietary supplements are many and complex. Until methods are fully developed, standardized, and widely accepted, GMP served as a primary tool for ensuring quality. And so that's one of the big things that a lot of companies or a lot of industries that do not require HACCP, they do go through and follow these GMPs. They have these GMPs that they implement and follow like the Bible. Failure of firms to comply with GMP regulations can result in very serious consequences, including those recall, seizure, fines, jail time. If you knowingly adulterate, you're going to jail. SSOPs, written procedures that an establishment develops and implements to prevent direct contamination or adulteration of a product. Adulteration, anything that is there that is not supposed to be, even if it's salt at a higher concentration than it's supposed to be. Maybe somebody's not going to get sick from it. Maybe somebody's not going to die from it, but it's still an adulterated product. Establishment must maintain daily records sufficient to document the implementation and monitoring of those SSOPs and any corrective action taken if something comes out of compliance or something is out of what it's supposed to be. Development of those SSOPs. Sanitation standard operating procedures shall describe all procedures an official establishment will conduct daily before or during operation sufficient to prevent direct contamination or adulteration. They should be designed and dated, so at that point you've got somebody responsible by the individual with overall authority. They're going to come looking for somebody, and if you're in a managerial position, it's probably going to be you to go through and make sure that everything's what it's supposed to be. Right? Procedures that are conducted prior to operation shall be identified as such and shall address at a minimum what's being done. At a minimum, what's being done. Shall specify the frequency at which each procedure in the sanitation SSOP is to be conducted. How often are you doing it? What are you doing? How often are you doing it? Right? And then, are you the responsible person? So, these 7 principles, this is the slide we're going to go through and end on. So, this is one of those to where you might want to go through and look at it again, go through and highlight this, go through and memorize these. You will need to know these 7 principles for the final. 7 principles. Analyze hazards, identify critical control points, establish those preventative measures with critical limits. How high can it get? Procedures to monitor, corrective actions, procedures to verify that everything's working like it's supposed to, and then you got to go through and have your records. We'll pick up here on the next presentation.